Call whoever you want." He didn't just say it. He leaned back and laughed. A sharp, dismissive laugh that echoed across the sidewalk and bounced off the glass windows of First National Bank. People stopped walking. A few turned their heads. Someone lifted a phone and began recording. The old woman didn't react the way he expected. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She didn't defend herself. Instead, she slowly opened her purse, pulled out a small flip phone with worn edges, and dialed a number from memory. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered. Calm, authoritative. Chief Reynolds. She didn't look at the officer when she spoke. "Good afternoon, David." The smile on Officer Daniels' face disappeared, because suddenly, he wasn't laughing anymore. And what happened in the next 10 minutes would follow him for the rest of his career. Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about a phone call. It's a story about assumptions, about dignity, and about a woman who understood power better than the man wearing the badge. If you're new here, this channel tells powerful, emotional justice stories that reveal what really happens when arrogance meets character. We don't rush them. We don't exaggerate them. We let them unfold, because sometimes the quietest moments carry the loudest lessons. And today's story, it begins with humiliation, but it ends with a truth that every person in uniform, and out of it, should remember. And you need to hear the full story, because the reason the chief answered her call personally is something nobody on that sidewalk knew. Not yet. It was 2:17 in the afternoon. Hot, bright, the kind of heat that makes the pavement shimmer and tempers shorten. Mrs. Eleanor Brooks stepped out of First National Bank holding a sealed white envelope. 74 years old, dark skin kissed by time, gray hair pinned neatly into a low bun, a blue church dress that reached just below her knees, low, sensible heels. Everything about her was quiet, measured, intentional. She walked to the edge of the sidewalk and paused near a bench. She was waiting. That's all. Waiting for her neighbor's grandson to pick her up. Inside the envelope was cash. A large withdrawal. Money she had every legal right to carry. Money she had saved for years. But across the street, a man exiting a cafe noticed her. He saw the envelope, saw her counting something briefly before sealing it. And he dialed 911. There's an elderly woman outside the bank with a lot of cash. She looks suspicious. Suspicious. That word. It travels faster than truth. 7 minutes later, Officer Mark Daniels pulled up. 28 years old. Recently promoted. 2 years on the force. Confident. Maybe too confident. He stepped out of the patrol car, already scanning her with narrowed eyes. He approached without greeting. "Ma'am." She turned slowly. "Yes. We got a call about you." "Oh, mind telling me what you're doing out here?" "I'm waiting for my ride." He looked her up and down. She blinked once. "For home." He glanced at the envelope in her hand. "What's in that?" "My bank withdrawal." "How much?" She paused. "That's personal." His jaw tightened. "Ma'am, when we get calls about suspicious behavior, it becomes my business." The crowd began forming naturally. People always slow down when authority raises its voice. Mrs. Brooks stood straighter. Her tone remained even. "I've done nothing wrong. I didn't say you did. But you implied it." That irritated him. He wasn't used to calm resistance. He was used to compliance. He stepped closer. "Let me see your ID." She handed it to him. He read her name. Eleanor Brooks. Address, West Ridge Drive. His eyebrows rose. "That's an expensive neighborhood." "Yes." "You live alone?" "That's also personal." A few murmurs rippled through the onlookers. Officer Daniels felt eyes on him. And instead of de-escalating, he leaned into the moment. "You're being uncooperative." "No, officer. I'm protecting my privacy." That word, privacy, it felt like a challenge to him. He crossed his arms. "How much money did you withdraw?" She met his eyes. "Enough." He exhaled sharply. "You know what? Step over to the car." "For what reason?" "Don't make this difficult." "I am not resisting." "I didn't say you were resisting." "Then why am I stepping to the car?" His patience thinned visibly. "Because I asked you to." The envelope remained steady in her hands. She did not tremble. She did not shrink. She simply watched him. And what nobody understood in that moment was that she was evaluating him, measuring his tone, his posture, his character, because she had seen this before, many times, decades earlier. But she had learned something over the years. The louder someone tries to appear powerful, the less secure they often are. Officer Daniels shifted again. And he laughed. That laugh was meant to embarrass her. to signal to the crowd that he was in control, to establish dominance. But Mrs. Brooks did something unexpected. She nodded. Very well. And she reached into her purse. That single motion changed everything. The phone looked outdated. Small. Gray. The screen slightly scratched. Officer Daniels smirked. You really calling someone? She ignored the tone. She dialed from memory. The crowd leaned in subtly. Curiosity is stronger than judgment. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Officer Daniels folded his arms again. Then the call connected. Chief Reynolds. The officer froze. Mrs. Brooks' voice softened slightly. Good afternoon, David. Silence. Officer Daniels' smirk faded. David? She continued calmly. I'm outside First National Bank. One of your officers seems to believe I'm a threat. Pause. The chief's voice changed. Which officer? She looked at his name tag deliberately. Officer Daniels. Another pause. Longer this time. Put him on. Officer Daniels swallowed. What is this? He would like to speak with you. She extended the phone. He hesitated. The crowd was completely silent now. He took it. Yes, sir. His tone had shifted instantly. Respectful. Tight. Yes, sir. I responded to a suspicious activity call. Pause. No, sir. She hasn't been aggressive. Another pause. His face paled. Yes, sir. I understand. Longer pause. Yes, sir. Right away. He handed the phone back carefully, like it was fragile. Mrs. Brooks listened briefly. Yes, that would be fine. She ended the call. Officer Daniels cleared his throat. The chief is on his way. A murmur moved through the sidewalk like wind through leaves. On his way? The chief? In person? Mrs. Brooks returned her phone to her purse. She did not smile. She did not gloat. She simply waited. But here's what nobody knew. Not the officer. Not the crowd. Not even the man who made the 911 call. Chief Reynolds didn't just recognize her name. He remembered it. Because 30 years earlier, she had changed his life. And in about 5 minutes, the entire sidewalk would understand why. For minutes later, a black SUV turned the corner. No sirens. No flashing lights. But unmistakable authority. It parked behind the patrol car. The door opened. Chief Marcus Reynolds stepped out. Mid-50s. Composed. Decorated uniform. Command presence without shouting. He didn't look at Officer Daniels first. He walked straight to Mrs. Brooks. And he embraced her. Right there on the sidewalk. Gasps erupted softly. Phones lifted higher. Officer Daniels stood frozen. Chief Reynolds stepped back and looked at her warmly. Mrs. Brooks. She smiled gently. Hello, Marcus. He turned slowly toward the officer. Do you know who this woman is? Silence. Officer Daniels shook his head slightly. Chief Reynolds faced the crowd briefly, then back to him. This woman founded the West Ridge Scholarship Foundation. Whispers spread. She paid for my college application fees when my mother couldn't. Daniel's breathing grew shallow. She tutored me in math every Saturday morning for 3 years. The crowd was completely silent now. She wrote my recommendation letter for the academy. A beat. And you questioned her integrity over her own money. Officer Daniels opened his mouth. Closed it. Chief Reynolds' voice remained calm. Controlled. But firm. Badge. The word landed heavily. Sir. Badge. Hands trembling slightly. Daniels removed it and placed it in the chief's hand. Pending internal review. Mrs. Brooks stepped forward slightly. Marcus. He turned to her. Be fair. Even now. Grace. Dignity. Restraint. Chief Reynolds nodded slowly. I will be. He faced Daniels again. You will return to the station. Now. Daniels walked back to his patrol car under dozens of watching eyes. No one laughed. No one mocked him. The humiliation was quiet and complete. Chief Reynolds turned back to Mrs. Brooks. I'm sorry. She shook her head gently. Teach him. That was all she said. Teach him. Because to her, this was never about revenge. It was about character. And here's what makes this story unforgettable. The power she held wasn't in the phone call. It wasn't in her connections. It wasn't even in the chief's respect. It was in her composure. Because true authority doesn't shout. It doesn't mock. It doesn't assume. It waits. And when necessary, it speaks. If this story is reminding you of someone strong in your life, take a second to subscribe. Because every week we share stories that prove dignity never goes out of style. And in a moment, I'll tell you what happened inside the department 6 months later. Chief Reynolds something Officer Daniels never expected. The first page was a summary. Community complaint trends. West Ridge and downtown sector. Graphs. Timelines. Names highlighted. Daniels wasn't the only one. The chief's jaw tightened. These are allegations. Yes. Allegations aren't convictions. Patterns aren't coincidences. He looked up at her sharply. She continued calmly. You trained under Captain Morris, didn't you? He nodded slowly. He used to say something. She leaned forward slightly. The badge doesn't protect you from scrutiny. It invites it. The chief closed the folder halfway. Why are you doing this now? Her answer came without hesitation. Because today I saw something familiar. What? Comfort. He frowned. Comfort and humiliation. The words hit. You saw how easily he laughed. The chief replayed the scene in his mind. The smirk. The tone. Yes. That comfort doesn't start in the field. She tapped the folder again. It grows when small things are ignored. The chief stood up again, pacing slowly. If this goes public, it will. He stopped mid-step. You've already contacted someone. Yes. His eyes widened slightly. Who? A journalist. Silence. The air felt heavier. You planned this. No. She shook her head firmly. I didn't plan to be humiliated. But when it happened, you were ready. He finished quietly. Yes. The chief walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot. Officer Daniels sat in his car alone, staring at the steering wheel, unaware that his name was about to appear in something much larger than an internal memo. You're forcing my hand, the chief said quietly. No, she replied. I'm strengthening it. He turned slowly. You believe in me that much? She met his eyes. I believe in who you were. That shook him more than any accusation. Because it wasn't about corruption. It was about drift. About slow compromises made in the name of order. And here's the twist no one saw coming. Mrs. Brooks had once turned down a city council position 35 years earlier because she believed influence worked better from outside the system. And today, she was proving it. The next morning, the headline hit local news. Police chief responds personally to elderly woman stop. Internal review underway. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part came at 11:43 a.m. A press release, signed by Chief Reynolds himself. It read, effective immediately, the department will implement mandatory bias reevaluation training and reopen past civilian complaints for independent review. Officers across the department stared at their phones. Reopen past complaints? That meant files long closed would be examined again. Officer Daniels was called into internal affairs. He sat across from two investigators. The folder on the table wasn't thin anymore. It was thick, because once reopened, other names surfaced, other incidents, other witnesses who had never been contacted. And then came the second shock. Security footage from a prior stop surfaced online. Not illegal, but uncomfortable. Tone, body language, pattern. The video went viral locally. Daniels wasn't shown as violent. He wasn't shown breaking laws. But he was shown doing something else. Belittling, condescending, laughing, just like he had on the sidewalk. Back at her home, Mrs. Brooks watched the news quietly. The envelope of cash sat on her dining table. She hadn't spent $1 of it yet. Because the oversight initiative wasn't just paperwork. It was already in motion. 3 retired judges had agreed to serve on the board. Pro bono. A civil rights attorney had volunteered advisory support. The journalist she contacted had already begun interviewing community members. And here's the most shocking detail. Chief Reynolds agreed to cooperate publicly. Fully. Because after that conversation in his office, he realized something painful. Leadership isn't tested when everything runs smoothly. It's tested when your own system is questioned. That evening, he drove to Mrs. Brooks' house. Not in uniform. Not in a department vehicle. Just Marcus, the young man she once tutored. He sat across from her at her kitchen table. I could lose support for this, he admitted. She poured him tea calmly. You could gain integrity. He looked at her. Do you trust me? She smiled gently. I wouldn't have called you if I didn't. Silence settled between them. Then she said something that would echo in his mind for years. Power isn't proven by who you silence. It's proven by who you're willing to listen to. And the next morning, he scheduled a town hall meeting. Open floor. No script. No filters. Because what started as a sidewalk humiliation had turned into something far bigger. But here's the final twist of this chapter. Officer Daniels was suspended pending full review. And during that suspension, he did something no one expected. Something that would shock even Mrs. Brooks. But that part belongs in the next chapter. If this story is gripping you, subscribe now. Because the next part reveals what Officer Daniels did during suspension and why it changed the entire outcome. You don't want to miss it. When Officer Daniels was suspended, most people expected anger, bitterness, denial. What no one expected was a knock on Mrs. Eleanor Brooks' front door 3 days later, at 6:12 in the evening. And what he said when she opened it changed the ending of this story completely. Stay with me, because justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Mrs. Brooks was setting the table when she heard it. 3 firm knocks. Not aggressive, not timid, measured. She walked to the door slowly. When she opened it, Officer Daniels stood there, out of uniform. No badge, no patrol car, just a plain shirt and uncertainty in his eyes. For the first time since she met him, he looked young. "Ma'am," he said quietly. She studied him. "Yes. I'm not here to argue." Silence. "I'm not here to defend myself." Another pause. "I'm here because I don't like what I saw." She waited. In the video, she didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stepped aside. "Come in." He hesitated, then entered. Her home was simple. Framed photos lined the walls. Graduation pictures, community events, students standing proudly beside her. He looked around slowly. "You taught all these kids?" "Yes." He swallowed. "I've been watching that footage." She sat down. He remained standing. "I didn't realize how I sounded." "How did you sound?" she asked gently. He hesitated. "Like I already decided who you were." Silence. "That's not how I see myself." She looked at him steadily. "That's not how most people see themselves." That landed. He sat down across from her. "I joined the force because I wanted to protect people." "Then protect them," she replied softly. He rubbed his hands together. "I've been thinking about something you said." "Which part?" "Teach him." His voice cracked slightly. "Why didn't you ask for me to be fired?" She held his gaze. "Because punishment teaches fear. Accountability teaches growth." He looked down. "My father was a cop," he said quietly. "He always said if you hesitate, you lose control." "And what did you learn?" "That hesitation is weakness." She nodded slowly. "And so you replaced hesitation with assumption." He froze. Because she was right. He had. Not intentionally, but gradually. Every suspicious call, every complaint, every tense interaction. He had begun expecting resistance, expecting dishonesty, expecting defiance. So when he saw an elderly black woman holding cash outside a bank, he didn't see a citizen. He saw a scenario, and he reacted to it. "I was wrong," he said quietly. She studied him carefully. "Do you understand why?" "Yes." "Say it." He hesitated, then spoke. "Because I treated you like a threat before I treated you like a person." The words hung in the air. Heavy. Real. She leaned back slightly. "That's the beginning." He looked confused. "The beginning of what?" "Change." Section 2. The Town Hall. Open loop. Would the department actually change? 2 nights later, the community center was full. Standing room only. Cameras in the back. Residents from every neighborhood. Chief Reynolds stood at the podium. No script. No prepared speech. Just a microphone. Mrs. Brooks sat in the front row. Officer Daniels sat in the back. In plain clothes. Anonymous. Or so he hoped. The chief began. "This week, something happened on a sidewalk that forced us to look inward." Murmurs. "We can choose defensiveness. Or we can choose growth." He paused. "We are choosing growth." Applause scattered. Then the floor opened. One by one, residents spoke. Some praised officers. Some shared painful stories. Some described subtle disrespect. Patterns. The word returned. Daniels listened. Really listened. A young man stood up. "Sometimes it's not what officers do. It's how they look at us." That sentence pierced him. Because he knew that look. He had used it. An elderly woman spoke next. "We don't want special treatment. We want equal treatment." Mrs. Brooks remained quiet. Watching. Observing. Measuring. Finally, Chief Reynolds said something that shocked the room. "I've invited Officer Daniels to speak." Heads turned. Daniels' heart pounded. He hadn't known this was coming. The chief met his eyes. A silent question. "Are you ready?" Daniels stood slowly. Walked to the front. The room buzzed. He took the microphone. I laughed. The room fell silent. I laughed at someone who deserved respect. He swallowed. "I thought I was in control." Mrs. Brooks. Pause. "I didn't see her." Silence. "I saw a situation." He inhaled deeply. "And that's the problem." A long pause. "I don't want to be that officer." No applause. No cheering. Just attention. Which was more powerful? I'm not asking for forgiveness tonight. I'm asking for the chance to earn trust. He stepped away from the mic and returned to his seat. The chief looked out at the room. This is where change begins. Not in headlines, not in punishment, in ownership. Internal Affairs completed its review 2 weeks later. 3 sustained findings. 2 required corrective actions. 1 formal reprimand. But something else happened. Officer Daniels requested reassignment. Not to a desk, not to a quieter district, to community engagement, the unit that works directly with youth programs. Scholarship mentorship, school outreach, the same program Mrs. Brooks once ran. When the chief told her, she smiled faintly. He asked for that, she asked. Yes. Good. Months passed. The oversight board launched publicly. Complaints were reviewed independently. Transparency reports were published quarterly. Trust didn't rebuild overnight. But conversations began. And Officer Daniels? He showed up. At schools. At youth centers. At scholarship drives. Not as a hero. Not as a savior. As a learner. One afternoon, 6 months later, he stood beside Mrs. Brooks at a graduation ceremony. She handed a scholarship envelope to a young student. He assisted quietly. After the ceremony, he turned to her. You changed my career. She shook her head gently. You changed it. He thought about that sidewalk often. About the laugh. About the phone call. About the moment his confidence cracked. And he realized something. The most powerful authority isn't rank. It's restraint. Here's what makes this story unforgettable. Mrs. Eleanor Brooks didn't raise her voice. She didn't insult him. She didn't weaponize power. She used accountability. She used dignity. And she understood something most people don't. You never know who you're speaking to. Not because of their connections, but because of their history, their impact, their quiet strength. If this story reminded you that real power is character, then join our community of stories that matter. Because stories like this don't just entertain. They teach. They challenge. They build perspective. And if you believe dignity should never be underestimated, subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the quietest person in the room may hold the strongest influence. I'll see you in the next story.